runner Barsaya reflected into the overall team score as they're still finishing in 5th overall, but their score up down to 120. Again, all those results available for you on athletic.live. But get set for this women's race. Expectation here that Oregon's going to hold serve?
I do think so. I want to just point out a couple of other names. And you can see Thornton Bott, the camera just panned by her. Laura Pellicoro of Portland was 7th here last year. She's a classy runner. She was 16th in the NCAA West Regional last year. She'll be a factor. And then the other one that you're going to appreciate is Sierra Atkins, a junior from UC Davis. She was 13th here last year, 2nd in the Big West in 2021. And her great uncle is Tommy Smith. So Sierra Atkins has that deep roots in track and field, going back to the 1968 Olympic gold medalist and, of course, world record holder at the time.
So Cal State Fullerton is here. Lewis and Clark, Oregon State, who has really developed a very nice women's program at the distances. Portland State, Texas, UC Davis, Washington State, and UCLA. And we are underway with the women's 6,000 meter distance at the 2022 Bill Dillinger Invitational.
A couple things here. They're going at it a much swifter pace than our men did in the previous race. Another thing, Paul, one of the most exciting moments, I think, in all of the sport of track and field cross country is the start of this type of cross country race. It's just such a beautiful peloton to see out there with all the different colors of uniforms. And you also mentioned Oregon State. Louis Quintana has done a marvelous job at Oregon State. Now, their two best runners, Kaylee Mitchell, Grace Featherstone, are not here. Both are superb steeplechasers, but they still have some good people here. And they're very young. Their top 3 outside of those 2 who are not here, Tegan Knox, Kate Laurent, and Emily Van Valkenburg are all freshmen. So it's interesting to see how they perform.
Well, Tom, it's an interesting and different cadence to a cross-country season for a distance runner than it would be on the track in the spring, where you're needing to get a time, you're needing to qualify for regionals. Here, you're just trying to get everyone sort of the right training sequence for where they are in their career, and then by the time the Pac-12s roll around in October, then get ready to run. And in some cases, those teams at the Pac-12 aren't the same teams that run at regionals because they're setting the stage for those bigger races at the end in November.
It's interesting you say that, Paul, because you'll notice that earlier, that Oregon track or cross-country schedule, was so truncated. I mean, you're talking about this race, Nutty Comb, Pac-12 regionals, and NCAAs. That's a short season. But that's replicated across most of the teams in the country. And the question is, with that limited body of work, can you get prepared well enough to run at an exceptional level in the meets like the championship meets, the Pac-12 West Regional and NCAA, because you only have 2 meets before the Pac-12.
Do you also see it as a reflection of amongst any of the major college sports? We're asking these men and women to run a competitive collegiate season in the fall, many of whom will step onto an indoor track during the winter. And, oh, by the way, we'd really love you to run until June.
Great point. I think maybe I have a little bit of a bias. I just think cross-country, one of the things that's really interesting and exciting about cross-country is the fact that everybody goes down to the same level. You're all running one race. You're 5, 10, 1,500 people all have to compete at this one distance. And so you get more of that head-to-head matchup, which I just love and which I think the sport thrives on, which always to me has made cross-country. I always felt like the toughest title to win in the world was the World Cross Country Championship because of that type of situation.
Well, as Tom mentioned, the complexion of this race just seemingly a little bit more spirited in the early going than what we saw on the men's side. The women coming through their first 3.5 minutes of this race here and be coming up shortly on the first timing mat, so we'll be able to reset the field. But Izzy Thornton Bott among the leaders up here in front there on the far left of your screen, now tucked behind her teammate and out there running well.
Yeah, Thornton Bott looks very good actually, and her kick was unbelievable in this race last year, Paul. We didn't even call her name until like a minute before the race finished. I was embarrassed. but that's the kind. She's very strong. She's also fast. She's a 2:03.8 800-meter runner, 4:13.75 1,500-meter runner, in addition to her prowess at cross country. And she was third as a part of the Ducks distance medley relay indoors last winter.
See the Texas athlete out there along the front there. Nice to see one half of the Texas squad here, split squad this weekend, as the men are in Oklahoma State. That's Beth Ramos of Texas, who comes across the first timing bid right next to Harper McLean, the Oregon runner who is out well. Behind them, McKaylie Cesar of Cal State Fullterton and Thornton Bott of Oregon. And Washington State, a couple of runners there in the top 10. Nina Kim Tai, we called her name several times throughout her career, and Elena Stone Boggs. Pellicoro, who Tom mentioned at the beginning, broadcast standout runner for the University of Portland, and Maddie Elmore of Oregon. That is about 8 deep on the leaders so far.
And Sierra Atkins, Tommy Smith's, whose uncle Tommy Smith, she is also kind of, they have her tied for 8th with Elmore. A couple things on this leaderboard, Paul. Beth Ramos, she was 4th in the Big 12 10,000 meters last year, and she's already won a cross-country race this fall, the Tornado Watch, and she was 6th in the Big 12 cross-country in 2020. So she is legit, very legit. And this leaderboard also has no surprises on it at the moment, which is interesting, because early in a race, you always expect somebody to get out there and want to, they get caught up in the excitement. This leaderboard is really full of all of our favorites. Caesar from Cal State Fullerton, she's also won a cross-country race this year, the Covert Classic. She's 34:32, 16:36 credentials. She was 3rd in the Big West 5,000 and 2nd in the Big West 10,000 on the track last spring. So she's very legit, running very confidently there for the Titans, right on the shoulder of Harper McLean of Oregon.
Showed you a moment ago the team scores in race through that first split. We'll have 4 splits on this 6,000 meter course, opposed to the 6 we had for the men. Oregon with a spread of 2nd through 11th in their top 5, good for 35 points. Texas spread 1 to 29 for 95 points. And Cal State Fullerton, UC Davis, and UCLA rounding out the top 5.
Oregon has a very deep team. You mentioned off the Shalane Flanagan interview, she said there were any one of 6 young ladies that could win this title here, and they're all up there right now. Izzy Thornton Bott, Harper McLean, who's a sophomore, Malia Pivic, a senior, Melissa Berry, also a senior, Maddie Elmore, a local runner. She's really good. She's been beset by injuries, but she finished 32nd at Nuttycombe last year. People will say, what, 32nd? That's no good. At Nuttycombe, that's a great finish for a freshman.
Yeah, Elmore, South Eugene High School graduate, certainly a well-established historical top high school when it comes to distance running in the local Eugene area. Melissa Berry, also a name to mention, the senior now for the Ducks, who ran at Sheldon. Really nice to see, again, that's part of that connection to community that over the years, you have some of these local kids having an opportunity to step on the same stage as some of these best in the country, best in the world kids who come to try to wear the green and yellow.
Amen. And I am impressed already with the job that Shalane Flanagan has done in a very short period of time. That green really sticks out today, and you can see them all nestled in that front pack. Very impressive team running. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting about what Flanagan said, 2 things. One was she said that sometimes these girls like to race each other at the end of workouts. And you can see Sierra Atkins from UC Davis now. She's up there on the far right. But Shalane Flanagan would say, sometimes they like to race each other. But the other thing is that they're always waiting for me to tell them what to do. And I think she's looking for the runners today to make their own decisions about when to go and how to run this race. And I think that's a very good point, because when you have one of the greatest distance runners in U.S. history as your coach, you've got to think, hey, I don't know anything. She knows everything.
Well, she was a little prophetic because she said she thought that among her top 6, she didn't know who her best runner was. She's got 6 Oregon women in the top 9 right now in this lead group. They're in the 9-minute mark in this women's 6,000-meter race at the 2022 Bill Dillinger Invitational. And Harper McKaylie out there leading that group, the sophomore looking very confident in her stride.
And I really like Sierra Atkins, who is on the far right, and not just because she's related to Tommy Smith, but she won the Big West 5,000 title last spring. She was second in her one cross-country race earlier this year, the UCR Invitational. She's got good leg speed. She's a 4:26 1500, 16:25 5,000 meter runner, and she's getting better and better. And she's running with confidence in that lead pack.
See those team scores populate. Oregon now with a very solid grip on the leadership position, 27 points, the spread 1-8. Again, they'll remove unattached runners and those runners running for teams that do not have 5 runners in the field. So sometimes team scores a little bit different than the true standings of the runners in the competition.
Paul, we're about halfway through the race. Last year, Thornton Bott and Winning ran 20:04. So we're about halfway through the race. It seems to me like, Oregon's a slam dunk on this team title. But what will be interesting to see is who emerges as the individual winner. A couple notes, too. Nima Kimtai of Washington State in that pack. She can't be discounted necessarily, and her teammate, Elena Stone Boggs, also cannot be discounted. Kimtai is a 2:05.54 800 runner, so she's got a lot of leg speed. And she has a range. She goes up to 16:31 for 5,000. You can see her there on the left, drifting off to the left there.
Yeah, some of the women who have been kind of in the back of this lead pack now moving up a little bit and pressing the leaders just a tad. But McKaylie, trying to hold them all off at this point, has led for most of the way here. Maybe just a little bit of a spread now forming in this lead group. They were tightly packed for a few minutes, but now a few now falling off the back.
There seems to be a little bit of an injection of pace, actually, from McKaylie. McKayle's one of the few runners in this race from Oregon that ran. She earlier this fall, she was third in the Lewis and Clark opener, so she's got a race under her belt, which can help. Izzy Thornton Bott is the second Oregon runner, right next to Kimtai and Sierra Atkins. And right up there, still holding her line there, is McKaylie Caesar of Cal State Fullterton. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. McKaylie is a bit of a surprise to me, Paul. Although she was 20th at the Pac-12s last year, she was 28th at Dellinger last year. On the track, not great credentials. 10:20 steepler, 16:36 5,000 runner, but she may be improving.
So they come across the timing mat with McKaylie, Atkins, Cesar, and Grocic of Washington State, who's moved up into 4th. Thornton Bott lurking, as we would expect she would. Laura Pellicoro, who's standout from Portland, and Beth Ramos of Texas. Oregon still with their top 5 in the top 10 places overall, so no change to what would appear to be an inevitable team victory for the women of Oregon.
A little bit of a surprise that Jeritich is up there. She ran a race earlier this season. She was 4th in the Washington State Invitational. She's a 16:44 5,000, 10:20 steepler. Kind of the same credentials that Harper McKaylie has, is right up there with her. But I wouldn't expect her to be in this lead group. And Laura Pellicoro, Paul, we haven't really talked much about her, although to say she's the second leading returner from last year's race, and she finished 7th, but she's been right in there, right on the shoulder of Thornton Bott most of the time. Now a little bit ahead of Thornton Bott. But Laura Pellicoro, 16th in the NCAA West Region Cross Country in 2021. Oh, that's a great shot right here. We get to see some more runners.
Just 31 points between second and seventh in the women's team race, with Oregon having that 66-point advantage over UC Davis. Here you see Melissa Berry of Oregon, the Sheldon High School graduate, as we get back to the leaders here in the women's race.
A little bit of a surprise. Thornton Bott is a little bit off the pace now. You can see her, she's all alone in that middle spot, making the turn and coming into the straightaway now. I'm not saying ride her off, because last year we know what happened towards the end of that race, but it might be a little concerning.
Yeah, she's back in 8th position now. 14.5 minutes, so 5 or 6 minutes left of racing. And maybe the only thing now to be decided is who will win the individual crown at the 2022 Bill Dillinger Invitational. Harper McLean trying to make it an Oregon sweep here on this September Friday, but has all she can handle from Sierra Atkins and McKaylie Caesar to the right and left of her respectively.
Sierra Atkins from the get-go has just looked super strong. There she is in third. And this would be a big breakthrough for her, although she has great credentials from Big West competition. You know, second in the Big West Cross Country in 2021, first in the track in the 5,000 in 2022. But this would be kind of her first really kind of major performance outside of the conference.
Now Caesar now inserting some pace. Atkins trying to respond, and McLean looking down at her feet, trying to conjure up some sort of response. Having led most of the way, now finding herself back alone in third and losing a little bit of ground with every stride.
Paul, we only have about 4 minutes left in this race, and Caesar's making a very bold move here. And again, we're talking about somebody with a 34-32 10,000 credentials. I mean, she's strong. She's not going to give up this thing without a fight. And she and Atkins have kind of broken away a bit here with Harper McLean in third.
Yeah, Oregon still comfortably ahead on the team side. Top 5 women in the top 12 places. And it may appear for the moment down to a race between Caesar and Atkins. So still a little bit of racing left here on the Pine Ridge Golf Club racecourse to crown an individual champion at the Bill Dillinger Invite.
This could be the preview of the Big West Conference Cross Country Championships. Atkins still, to me, looks like maybe the stronger athlete at this point. She certainly has more speed. She's 426 for 1,500. Caesar's the strength runner. Atkins is the speed runner. So it'll be interesting to see in this final 3 minutes who's going to emerge from this.
Still waiting for a couple of the 5th place runners for some of the teams to come across the timing mat for our final in-race update to the team scores. There you now see it populating. Oregon only one in double digits. Their lead at 66 still. Excuse me, 56 still. Math was never my strong suit. Cal State Fullerton in second. UC Davis in third, and a tie with Portland and Washington State rounding out the top 5. But now the focus is at the front. McKaylie Caesar and Sierra Atkins dueling battle, and now Atkins to the lead.
That's a nice move by her. The question is, with about 2 minutes left in the race, and she keeps looking at her watch, not sure why. She has run this course before. Laura Pellicoro is moving up a lot, and she's now in third. I don't think she'll have enough to catch, there'll be enough time for her to catch up to the top 2, but she's coming fast.
I do wonder if the athletes know that we are actually timing this event for them as a value add for the participation value of being here at the Bill Dillinger Invitational. And Atkins now opening up a little bit of a lead. And as you mentioned, Pellicoro trying to find something in the tank to maybe at least potentially catch Cesar for second. As Atkins gets some final encouragement here, and that lead growing with every stride now.
Yeah, she looks great. And again, her turnover is really good. And that's what you have to judge this whole thing by, is how quickly are they turning over. And she's got great turnover. She's got about a minute to hang on here. We know Cesar's strong, but Sierra's fast. And you can see Pellicoro there a little bit in the distance.
So some final words of encouragement from some of the men who completed the race just a few minutes ago. As we come into the closing stretches of this women's 6,000-meter distance, you see the lead now for Sierra Atkins of UC Davis. Comes in the final stretch. Atkins, the junior from Santa Rosa, California, race behind her for second with Cesar and Pellicoro. But our winner on the women's side today, Sierra Atkins of UC Davis. Stop that watch, you're the winner.
And congratulations to Sierra Atkins, her time faster than what Izzy Thornton-Bott ran last year. Really, that's a breakthrough race for Sierra Atkins. There's no other way to put it. Just an absolute breakthrough race, and really, really strong finish by her to take the sting out of Pellicoro and Cesar.
And Harper McLean, top Oregon finisher in fourth, as we see the rest of the University of Oregon women's team come across the line. Now 4 Oregon women in the top 11 positions, and wait for their 5th place runner to come through to confirm a sweep for the men and women of Oregon in the team race here at the Bill Dillinger Invitational. What do they say at the end of Nike Cross Nationals? Finish on empty. You can see in some cases it took every ounce of energy to get to and through the line on this day as a finisher for the Bill Dillinger Invitational. Women's scores still populating on the individual side. Oregon's top 5, 4th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 16th. Good for 50 points. That'll be to be confirmed officially, but will be their official winning team score. Waiting for that battle for the rest of the places. That was actually an intriguing part of this race, was a lot of competition and a very strong field. A lot of, regional bragging rights, and, we'll see how that plays out here as the final few athletes come across the line.
Well, and I'd be interested in Shalane Flanagan's take after this race. She said there were 6 athletes that she didn't know which of them would emerge here to, as a top finisher on her team. They had 8 of the top 21. So, and only 5 score. So, she's sitting in the catbird seat here because they are extremely deep. Now, the one area of concern, Izzy Thornton-Bott, only 11. You would expect her to be a little bit higher up, but maybe, again, people peek it later. They understand, some of the veteran runners, when you have to peak. Also, Paul, I just wanted to point out, Washington State's Elena Stone-Boggs in 5th and Caroline Jeritich in 6th. Nice performances by them.
Well, it's an Oregon sweep in the team race on the women's and men's side. Oregon takes the individual crown on the men's side, but it's Sierra Atkins of UC Davis, the individual women's winner at this year's Bill Dillinger Invitational, and she's the finish line with our Doug Binder.
Look at the Dellinger Invitational. I'm here with the women's winner, Sierra Atkins from UC Davis. Ran 19:53 for 6K. You were second at the UC Riverside invite last weekend, so boy, you're off to a good start.
Yeah, it's really been, I came here today with the race plan of being somewhere in the top 20. Wasn't quite expecting a win, but I'll take it. So I think I felt really good throughout the whole race. It was me, Harper from Oregon, who I've raced in high school, along with McKaylie Caesar, who we've kind of had like a little back and forth rivalry. We're both Big West. And as soon as Kaylee made that move with maybe like a little over a K to go, I was like, Harper's getting a little tired. I was like, I'm going to go with her. I got to go with McKaylie. And I could tell we were both feeling really good, just coming around that last loop. But I felt really strong, so I was like, I'm just gonna kick this down the last 800 meters or something. And I really didn't know if I was gonna have it or not. But I guess there's some speed in these legs right now. So
For sure, it was a great kick. What does a result like this do for you moving forward?
honestly, this is like something I think this is just going to be a stepping stone, hopefully, to nationals. Our team, my biggest goal is for our team to qualify, but you know, if I can get that individual qualifier, you know, if I stay strong throughout the rest of the season, I think that's where this could be headed. So
in high school, you didn't run cross country; you were just running track, right?
I did.
It turns out you're pretty good.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. My coaches always say that I was always meant to be a 10K runner, but I still love me some 1500, some 5K, and I obviously I love cross too. So.
All right. Hey, well, Sierra, congratulations on your win, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you so much. Thank
All right, back to you guys.
Is that going to be?
Well, I have to say that the folks in the Big West office down in Southern California have got to be pretty darn happy with the performance of UC Davis and Cal State Fullerton, who finished. The results are still coming in, Paul, but right now they're tied for second at 100 apiece. But even more importantly than that, you had Atkins first, Caesar third, Brianna Weidler of UC Davis seventh. And and Chloe Arriaga of UC Davis 13th. So that's a nice performance for that conference.
So what they should be doing is bringing out Atkins and Cesar and running like a 1,500-meter race-off to break that tie between second and third as they talk about that ongoing rivalry that they have. And indeed, those team scores reflect a very close result in the places behind Oregon, which was clearly the winner with 50 points. UC Davis and Cal State Fullerton tied with 100 points apiece and sharing second position. Though that tiebreaker usually is, fifth place runner's position? What's our tiebreaker sequence?
I believe that is the case, yes.
So higher finish by the fifth place runner for Cal State Fullerton, finishing in 28th, or maybe not. It's been such a long morning. I'm not sure I read up on my tiebreaker rules before.
I think that's right, actually.
Yeah.
So
Washington State finishing in fourth, and Portland finishing in the top five. Final reflections of this morning of racing here in Springfield.
A couple things, Paul. I think number one is it's really nice to see that kind of the fresh blood coming into the conference with Jerry Schumacher at Oregon, Shalane Flanagan at Oregon, and Sean Brosnan at UCLA, to see the successes. You know, I'm an unabashed fan of West Coast cross-country running, and what we saw today was a pretty good and emblematic that it is alive and healthy, and we saw some really good performances by Aaron Benenfield to win the men's race and Sierra Atkins to win the women's race. And a beautiful day here in Eugene, and I hope everybody comes out to Hayward Field tonight, because it'll be a special evening to be out on the track.
There you see the final team scores, and as Tom just mentioned, the opportunity, if you're in driving distance to Hayward Field, to join us tonight at 6:30 as they open the doors to the community to welcome the new coaching staff, meet some of the athletes that were on the race